The passion has never burned brighter than with hot rod cars, gritty racers, or somewhere in between. Hot rods embody the core values that made this country great. Innovation, improvisation, fast cars, and the relentless drive to succeed. And knew who lived it. This is the incredible true story of an American icon, the hot rod.
Hello, I'm Chip Foose. Many of the hot rods we've seen on this show have been 50, 60, even 70 years old, and yet successes of the 1970s in helping lay the foundation for rodding's renaissance, collectors and research, and it's thanks to them that these cars exist today, as a testament to the incredible feats performed on alkali, salt, and asphalt by the hot rodders of yesteryear.
Rodders of the 40s and 50s didn't have history in mind when they built and modified their cars. They were at a car show. Hot rods were never intended to be permanent cars, as their owners would be constantly tinkering with the frame, swapping out engines, replacing worn components, and experimenting with new speed equipment. As such, much like race cars, there was a tendency.
To the old guys, these were just a bunch of old cars, and let's move on to the new stuff. But to us, my generation now, we're starting to really worship, these guys that were the pioneers, were built and they died, and they recycled the parts, But the notion of restoring a hot rod really was a new phenomenon.
However, as the golden years of hot rodding receded into the past, people who'd grown up on a steady diet of Hot Rod magazine look back fondly at the cover cars of their youth, many of which, unknown to them, had been radically changed from their original iconic designs, or worse, abandoned in some wood pile. But one man passed.
I think you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who has had a bigger contribution to hot rod acknowledgement than Bruce Meyer. Bruce is an enthusiast. He's tirelessly promoting hot rods. He's rescuing them from oblivion and restoring them to the performance level. And he's just become such an ambassador for the hobby. He's really helped spread the word.
I think Bruce is a great guy. Highlighted the way it should be. Bruce is just a great person.
I mean, he has, the Pearson Brothers Coupe, the SoCal belly tank, the Gerblack and Perdome car. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So he has this talent long before anybody else did. And so, quite frankly, I don't think I'd be right where I see the car magically appear in front of him. It's done exactly to the nth degree of when it was done, when it was brand new. And I have I've personally been involved in half a dozen of those, and watching guys like Alex just look at his car and go, my God, there it is. I mean, 40, 50 years later, and it's Bruce, and it's awesome, what he does. He's the best.
Collectors like Bruce Meyer.
As a young man growing up in Los Angeles, Bruce was right in the middle of the beating heart of hot rod culture. As he grew older, he went looking for a way to pay tribute to the great cars of his childhood.
I started going through page by page and just admiring. It set records on the dry lakes because at the time, almost all the hot rods were roadsters. I mean, there were roadster clubs, and there were roadster clubs, and there were roadster clubs. But the coupes were not welcome anywhere. So these guys started a club called the Coupes. And this was really the first coupe that turned heads on the dry lakes and at Bonneville.
Practically unrecognizable. Like many hot rods of the golden year, Bruce Meyer bought for a decade before he could get his hands on one of the most acclaimed horse. The Pearson Brothers Coupe would prove that old hot rods didn't have to be thrown away.
I started doing my homework of what happened to the car and found that it was still running on the dry lakes. It was owned by a fellow named Tom Bryan. It was called the Tom Thumb Special. We went to the dry lakes. I made him an offer. He thought I was like crazy. Why would anybody? To Pete Chaporis, who is just an amazing restorer. And he so faithfully restored that car using every bit of the metal that was on it, the original chassis, all the original suspension. It was just a great car. And of course, the Pearson brothers loved seeing the car come together, and they both gave us input, kind of helped us through the process. So it was fun uniting the guys that built the car. Bobby Meeks, who built the engine, Vic Edelbrock, Dick Pearson, Bob Pearson, they all came together to help us restore this car to the exact way it was in 1950. When we finished the car, and I invited my hot rod pals coming out of historic hot rods. I had
coupes. Bruce Meyer turned his eye towards one of history's most cherished roadsters, the Black Highboy built by Doane Spencer.
Neil East had retreated there because Spencer was going to race on the Pan Americana.
And everybody tried to buy the Durham. So it had only 4 owners from the 30s to the 90s when I bought it. Doane gets in touch with Neil and basically says, Bruce is the guy that should have this car. He allowed me to be the next custodian for the car. And as I say, I don't own any of these cars. My cars are not the Bruce Meyer Roadster, the Bruce Meyer Tank. These are the SoCal Roadster, the Pearson Brothers Coupe, and the Doane Spencer Roadster.
I think I was ever more nervous in my life. I mean, and it had to be right. This car had to be as good as we could possibly make it. Which hard looking at it. It's so narrow in the back, and the way Doane set the right with the right.
Having completed work on the Doane Spencer Roadster, it only made sense that Bruce Meyer would seek out the other hot rod that established the highboy style in the late 40s, the Roadster belonging to Bob McGee.
The very first year of Hot Rod Magazine, the very first highboy was the McGee Roadster. So I went out looking for that car. I was able to find the car, took it to Pete, and we started the restoration of the McGee Roadster. And Bob lived down in Orange County, and said it just made that car so special.
And as it turns out, they weren't the only ones in the restoration game. Pete Chapors's old partner, Jim Jacobs, took on the project of restoring.
I give Jim Jacobs, the famous Jake of Pete and Jake's, a lot of credit because he restored the Niekamp car. And it was on the cover of Hot Rod magazine, Jake with his flat heat in the driveway. He said I couldn't drive it on the street very much.
Finest roadsters, coupes, and lakesters in history, drag racing pioneers were looking to...
The reason for restoring the car was because I went to the Bakersfield March meet. We were up there and they're advertising the first March meet's going to restore it. I never said I would do that. And I said, okay, I'll have it up here next year for the 20th anniversary. So I came home and I started working on it. At the 20th anniversary, I had the car there.
When my dad and I restored the Hustler one, that was in our garage at home. I still lived at home at the time. So we did it all in the garage. And in fact, Steve Davis came over and painted it in the driveway.
And it led to, what do I do with it now? You got my car up there, another guy got his car, another guy got his car. And like the first Crackle Fest they had at the March meet, they only had 8 cars, got 100.
I was able to live in a little article, and I was able to see those cars.
More recently, a speed equipment giant and an acclaimed street rod builder joined forces to restore one of the most...
Mom and Dad had, it was the only car before the war. It was the family car. And my dad liked to go to the dry lake business. And in order to do that, my dad bring it back, and then he put all the stuff back on, and then it became the family car. So we just took it and we restored it to what it was when it went to the dry lake, so people could see that. Now there's a display there which shows a bunch of newspaper when my guy that was restoring that car was trying to alter the driver's door by heat, and it wasn't reacting. He got really upset, so he goes in there and he opens it up, and here's this newspaper. Well, what the hell is this? So I went to Alex Exilius and I said, Alex, what was that 32 Roadster door? It sounded like a tin can. There was nothing much there. He says, so everybody would take newspapers and stuff it in that door, and when you shut the door, it sounded like it.
That was one of the greatest original car back in the family, and that car will be with the Edelbrucks forever.
Restoring and preserving hot rods has evolved culture where California, which for one day every August turns into Classic Car Valhalla, the most prestigious car show on earth, the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance.
The more involved I got with hot rodding, the more I wanted every one of my friends to have a hot rod, the more I wanted the world to know about hot rodding, because it was just so underappreciated at Pebble Beach. Well, I'm telling you, it was 10 years. Brian basically said over our dead bodies, you know, it was all about dudes and hot rods. I mean, it's just like nothing could have been more fun. And every hot rodding article that had any nexus with time I could to legitimize the hot rodding. 1997, I got to Main Beach, just basically to humor me and to get me off their shoulders and out of their face. This will be the first hot rod on the lawn at Pebble Beach.
Because of guys like Bruce Meyer, we were able to be involved in the first Pebble Beach hot rods.
Hot rod class at Pebble Beach Roadster. And it was just a stunner. And we drove it a great day for hot rodding. And it basically...
First runner-up that year was another legendary 32 with an impressive pedigree, the Ray Brown Roadster. When hot rods returned to Pebble Beach in 1999, Bruce Meyer and Pete Chaporis were again honored for their work, as their McGee Roadster was the first runner. Donna Roscoe's 29 Dick Flint Roadster. Coming in third was Blackie, and the level of workmanship was such that picking a winner became increasingly difficult.
The judging is like having a migraine because you're doing apples and pears and oranges. It has evolved a little bit since we started. We're looking to have these cars historically accurate, just the way a race car is. You need to pick a point in time and restore the car to be as accurate as it was at that moment, that race or that time period. But it's very difficult, and it often, because now the level of restoration has gotten higher and higher, we're trying not to let them over-restore these cars. A couple of years ago, we had 4 100-point cars, and they're absolutely perfect.
For the 2001 event, Roadsters were looked out for Best in Class and the Dean Batchelor Memorial Trophy. Coupes raced by SoCal Speed Shop.
Having hot rods at Pebble Beach was just...
Third place was Chrisman, but third place for a guy who...
That coupe should have won that Pebble Beach. I built it. I restored it. I was there with it. I started it up, but it got third.
Hot rods are in some respect national treasures, worth preserving and worth displaying.
I think owning an iconic car, whether it's a Ferrari, a hot rod, or a Duesenberg, comes with the responsibility of sharing with the people. Because that's what it's really all about.
And by preserving hot rods of the past, Bruce Meyer and everyone involved in this Herculean archival effort helped kick off the revival of traditional style.
Or whether it would be around the museum, they kind of don't get it driving. And that's what's really important.
Out to pasture as a rotting hulk. Thanks to restorers like Pete Chaporis, Art Chrisman, and Jim Jacobs, and patrons like Bruce Meyer, that world didn't come to... I'm Chip Foose. Thanks for watching.
On the Hot Rod.
He'd say it. I'll have the card ready for you.
I came up with this idea.
Our club's been around since 1953. More people have climbed to the top of Mount Everest than are in this club. It's pretty exclusive.